All right, folks, it was just tomorrow's a week already that the election was held in New Jersey and Virginia. And, of course, the results, a Republican victory for Chris Christie in New Jersey and not so for Ken Cuccinelli and the Republicans in Virginia. Joining us now is my friend. He is the head of John McLaughlin Associates, John McLaughlin. Hello, John.
Steve, great to be with you again.
It's always good to talk to you. Of course, your organization, a polling organization, a very fine one, and did the first poll post-Virginia election, and you came up with really interesting results, basically finding out that Virginia is still a conservative state when it comes to most issues, and you even came to the conclusion that a different Republican candidate might have actually beaten Terry McAuliffe.
Exactly, and McAuliffe was closing. A lot of people had written him off. Not McAuliffe, pardon me.
Cuccinelli, yeah.
Cuccinelli was closing, and he was off the air, and it was an amazing thing because he was focused on Obamacare. And, you know, the results, granted in Virginia, we wanted to do better, that he lost a close race by 3 points, but you realize there's 100 House of Delegate representatives. The Republicans kept 67 out of the 100. Where there was 68 before we started, we won 8 out of 8. People like Barbara Comstock won, who happen to be pro-life, pro-Second Amendment. Conservatives won, and in Virginia, the poll you're talking about, which we did on election night for the YGnetwork.org, where if anybody wants to go look at this, they could see it at YGnetwork.org.
That's the Young Guns Network, by the way.
Well, no, it's a little different because it's a C4.
Oh, okay, okay.
Young Guns are the congressional stuff. But YG Virginia did this survey, and you had 600 people who voted that day, told us that night how they voted and why, before the media could pollute them. And 41% were conservatives, only 23% were liberals. So there's a real clear path that we've seen before where if Republicans can unite our base and win a plurality of the moderates, you know, we can beat them. And you saw that in the House of Delegates races. You saw that where even the AG's races now out of 2.2 million votes, they're within 17 votes.
Wow, that's
where Obenshain's ahead, in spite of what everybody thought was going to be a landslide from McAuliffe, where Cuccinelli was able to close on Obamacare, on the issue.
Right. Well, is that attributable to does the AG race also hedge on that? I mean, why was that much closer?
Well, you had 53% of Virginia voters who voted that day said they oppose Obamacare,
yes,
they disapprove of it. And by the way, you know, besides Christie's landslide in New Jersey, even in New York, where we had big races for county executives, important races where you had a lot of, you know, I mean,
Rob Astorino in Westchester County,
he was
Nassau County,
won by 10 points.
Yeah,
Mangano in
Nassau.
In Nassau, won 59-41 over Tom Suozzi. And it was all about pocketbook issues. It was about taxes. It was about, you know, Obamacare, what's hurting people is they're being dropped and they're being forced to pay higher premiums. It's really the middle class has had enough.
And that's what your poll in Virginia showed as far as the main issue that spanned the political spectrum. Republicans, conservatives, liberals, Democrats, moderates, they all were talking and most concerned and wanted to hear more about during the campaign, as it turns out, the economic issues.
Right, exactly. And McAuliffe was trying to do a rerun of Obama's race, where he was doing a war on women. He was trying to run these social issues on the liberal social issues, saying on abortion and other things. And really what people really care about, right, is they're trying to make their lives just get by every day. And people want pay raises. They don't want to hear about the economies are not growing. They want to hear about things like that basically that they can their energy costs will be less, their health care costs will be less,
right.
What they pay at the gas pump will be less.
Well, let me ask you, we're talking to John McLaughlin of John McLaughlin Associates, Republican polling firm here on the Steve Malzberg Show. 2014, 2016, I mean, what do Republicans have to do? Well, first of all, what was so bad about Ken Cuccinelli? Why do you say, why do you believe that the polls show and the numbers show that if it was a different Republican candidate, perhaps, then they could have beaten Terry McAuliffe?
Right. Well, the difference is in that survey, if McDonald, the Governor Bob McDonald, who won 4 years ago, his image was Bob for Jobs. He was about creating jobs, and he won big 4 years ago. So when we asked people, would he have beaten Terry McAuliffe, they said yes. And the same thing for Bill Bowling, who's a lieutenant governor. Cuccinelli got derailed by they somewhat blame the shutdown, because Virginia is unique in that a lot of people in Northern Virginia work for the federal government or work for businesses that do business with the federal government. So, and this is a good comparison. In Nassau County, when I was working for Ed Mangano, we asked them if they were negatively affected by the federal government shutdown. Only 19% said yes. And this was right after the shutdown.
Right.
And we said, on the other hand, has anyone in your family experience where their premiums have gone up, their costs have gone up for health care, or they've been dropped for their health care? And 30% said yes.
That's
outside
huge.
the Beltway.
Yeah.
Obamacare, and even in Obamacare, I had candidates saying to me, "Oh, Obamacare doesn't matter that much," and I'm like telling them at the end, I'm saying we have to run against it.
Yeah, well, that's what Cuccinelli did, and as you point out, he ran out of money. I think if the election, if the campaign could have gone on until this Tuesday, there's a good chance that he might have overcome it.
Yeah, exactly. And if
you agree with that? That if he had more time,
I agree with that. If he had more time. Plus, if the shutdown the tactic was wrong. It wasn't necessarily that we were wrong to oppose Obamacare. It was the tactic that, unless you defund Obamacare, I'm going to blow my brains out. And Obama said, "Okay, go ahead, blow your brains out."
Yeah.
It was just it was a bad tactic where the goal was what we all agreed on. The bad part was the tactic of shutting down the federal government.
John,
in Virginia.
Yeah.
You got to realize a lot of people work for the military or defense contractors.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, federal workers, that's the little change in demographics. But this is encouraging for Republicans overall. Thanks for taking the time. We'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Always good to talk to you. John McLaughlin of John McLaughlin Associates. When we come back, Major General Paul Vallely will join us, talk a little bit about Veterans Day, and then Jennifer Rubin from the Washington Post, the Right Turn column. All that straight ahead. You want to weigh in, 877 Newsmax, 877-639-7629 on the show that they spent millions to come up with a name for, the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV, and